and welcome to this episode of Season 5 of the Dr. Tech Show, where myself, Pauline Roche, and Sweyn Hunter, and often guests, talk about digital topics, including the world of online communications and digital inclusion, in a show which was the brainchild of digital storyteller, the late, great John Popham. So, Sweyn, how are you, and how's the weather been this week where you are?
It's all fine, and the weather up until today, or up until yesterday, has been amazing. Like many other places, dry, sunny, wonderful. A bit duller today and overcast, but we've had an amazing month of nice weather, which is great.
And that's in Orkney as usual.
Yes,
Lovely,
as
yeah.
usual.
And here in Birmingham, where I am, my usual place, it has also been lovely. I was out in the sunshine yesterday, having lunch out, which was a very pleasant experience, and then sitting out in the front of the house trying to get a bit of the late sunshine. And when I came home from seeing my friend Grace, and yeah, been good weekend, out and about. Tried to get
Good,
my
good.
brakes fixed on my bike.
All right, yes.
Took the bike out of the shed and discovered the back brakes weren't working. The front brakes were working, so that was
Oh, well,
fine.
you want the back ones mainly, don't you? So,
Kind of, yeah. So I've been told. So there was a bike maintenance session on down at the Hive here in Moseley where I live. But unfortunately, it was a bit late when I realised the big brakes weren't working and the session was on. So I went down anyway on the off chance, but they said no, sorry, we can't see you.
mm,
They're hoping to
mm.
do another session today, so not in
Oh well.
Moseley, but somewhere else. So I might catch up on that later.
Mm.
But then I was looking on YouTube,
Ah,
as you do, trying to find the ideal 4 minute
back
video to show you
brakes,
how to
replace,
exactly.
help me.
Not that easy to find. But I'm yeah, I'm going to try and learn a bit more about it.
There we
And
are,
also
yes.
getting my tires pumped up. I have a pump, and one of my neighbors tried to do it, but I don't think it was successful. So
Right.
I think I do need a bit of maintenance. So yeah,
Yes, it's always good to have your bike in good shape.
yeah,
Otherwise,
yeah.
yeah.
Okie dokie. So let's go on to dates. What dates have you picked up for
Okay,
us this week?
we have two this week. If I can find my screen. This is always the most awkward part of the show, I find, is sharing the screen
Mm-hmm.
while also trying to make sure that I have something to read about it. So
Yeah.
this week we have two dates. The first of them is, and I thought of John Popham here and many others as well, Local and Community History Month, being
Hmm.
John being a local and community person.
Mm-hmm.
Which is May. The whole of May is the month, and in 2025, it's a chance to delve into the history of our own communities and to understand our shared heritage. The event encourages exploration of local cultures, histories, and traditions to foster a greater connection with our places of residence. It's an annual event, and it provides an opportunity for people to appreciate history, to visit historical sites, and to participate in activities that celebrate their community's heritage. We've got a very strong um, strand of local history here in Orkney, and I get the impression that Birmingham does too.
Hmm. Yeah. Very
Even
popular.
parts of Birmingham, even individual parts of Birmingham.
Yeah, and the libraries have a great local history department, which is usually quite busy. So it's great to see people delving into the past.
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah. So the second of the two dates I've picked is um, the the United Nations World Telecommunication and Information Society Day. Didn't think there was much more relevant to us than that
Mm-hmm.
in
Mm-hmm.
the whole year of United Nation days. And it was on the 17th of May, which I happen to know was Saturday because that was also Norwegian Constitution Day.
Huh.
And parenthesis, Orkney is one of the very few places outside of Norway which holds a traditional celebration, a march through the town, flag waves, and speech
Wow.
on Norwegian Independence Day. Because, well, before Norway was independent, which happened in 1814, many hundreds of years before that, Orkney was, of course, and along with Shetland, but we don't mention them. Um, yes, we do. Yes, Orkney and Shetland, damn it.
Mm-hmm.
We were part of Norway until we were handed over to the Scots in 1472. So
Wow.
there's a very, very strong connection
Okay.
there. And there are one or two other Norwegian Independence Day celebrations in outside Norway itself, but not very many, and we've got one
Mm.
of them.
Hmm.
Anyway, back to World Telecommunication and Information Society Day. The purpose of this is to help raise awareness of the possibilities that the use of the internet and other information and communications technologies can bring to societies and economies. So that's really what we're all about. I mean, we don't really need a day for that, do we? Does anybody
No.
need a day for that now? But it's good to sort of just have it there as a way for the UN to bring focus to these issues every year. And it's um, Telecommunications Day started a long time ago, uh, and it's based on the organization called the International Telecommunications Union, which is 160 years old this
Mm.
year. I mean, I imagine, well, no imagining about it. It started off with telegraph, then with radio, and then um, it's just kept going and kept going. It's a continuous history, isn't it? From the
Mm.
very first
Mm.
telegraphed Morse code signals
Hmm.
through until broadband and you know Starlink and everything else today.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Wow.
just one long story.
Hmm.
So they repurposed what was um, originally a day for telecommunications across the world, and they repurposed it and added in Information Society in 2005,
Mm.
which is quite soon, quite early on in
Yeah.
the evolution of uh, what you might call the digital revolution. It was
Mm.
quite soon. So they've combined the first 2 days. The 17th of May, by the way, marks the anniversary of the first signing of the International Telegraph Convention, which founded the International Telecommunication Union in, well, 160 years ago, whatever that means,
Wow.
whenever that was.
Hmm.
And this year, um, there's a theme every year, and I thought the theme also was very appropriate for things we try and focus on sometimes, which is the theme this year is closing the gender digital divide
Mm.
unlocks opportunity for all. So potential remains out of reach for many in terms of digital um, life. And of the 2.6 billion people in the world still unconnected, 2.6 billion out of what, 8 or 9 billion,
Yeah.
I'm thinking. Of them, the 2.6 unconnected billion, the majority are women and girls, and gaps in access and affordability of the internet and digital devices, as well as limited digital skills, continue to hinder the participation of women and girls in today's economy and in shaping tomorrow's digital solutions. And bridging this divide is essential to unlocking new pathways for economic growth, innovation, and sustainable development.
Mm.
So there we are.
Mm.
I'm not sure about the. I mean, there'll be vast differences between one country and the other. I'm sure there are some countries where there's hardly a gender divide at all. I'm thinking perhaps of Scandinavia.
Mm.
There'll be other countries, I'm sure, particularly in the developing world, where there's a huge disparity in where education, even for girls, never mind, well, including digital, is still a big cause that needs a bit of progress.
Mm. Yeah. Great. Well, thanks for telling us about that one. That sounds really good. Yeah, and I think again, John would have thought that was a good one to for us to highlight. And moving on to the events that I've picked out tomorrow, Tuesday, 20th of May, from 11 to 12, and on subsequent weeks, there are part of a course called Digital Inclusion Using Tech with Ease. And I believe that's in Scotland. I thought I'd picked out the location, but I can't. Can you
It's
see
in
it on the
Radford.
Bradford?
No, Radford. It's
Radford. Oh, okay.
NG7.
Oh, that's Nottingham, near Nottingham. Okay.
All right. Okay.
Okay. The reason
Yes.
I picked
Yes.
out something else that was in Perth. That's right. So yeah, this one is called Digital Inclusion Using Tech with Ease, and it's a friendly introduction to technology, simple activities to help people feel comfortable with devices. No need to worry if you've never used a computer or smartphone before. So it's very, very basic, taking it step by step, navigation, then on to internet basics, essential digital skills like sending emails and using video calls to connect with family, digital safety tips, and personalized support. So it sounds like a very relaxed, open judgment-free environment, they're saying, so people can learn some practical skills to use right away and resources to continue learning. So that sounds
Sounds very well
very
designed, that one.
basic, yeah, and
Yes.
kind of the kind of thing that you've just kind of covered really in your events, sort of the lots of people don't have these skills. We think, or lots of people think people do have them, but people still need some basic help. So it's great to see that happening, and it's over a course of several weeks. So
I
that's
like that
good to
formulation.
see that. Yeah.
Use tech with ease. I think
Mm,
it avoids any sort of buzzword, any sort of complexity, but it's
mm,
very clear about what it means. It's
yeah.
great. Yeah.
Mm. And the next one is another series of workshops, 20 starting tomorrow, 20th of May as well, so 5 to 7 p.m. So it's an evening time. So if you went to the morning ones, you could rush off to the evening ones if you were had the gift of bilocation, I think. Um, this is a free 4-week digital inclusion workshop, encouraging people to gain the confidence to thrive online, starting with computer basics and Windows skills, a bit like the previous course, moving on to safe web browsing, master Google Suite for cloud productivity, and finish, and this was the thing that caught my eye, finish by exploring AI with hands-on chat GPT exercises. So a bit more advanced maybe than the previous one that we talked about. But now is this one in Perth? Is this the one?
This one's the one in Perth. Yes,
Ah,
I've
okay,
spotted the
great. Yeah.
press. But it's in a library in Perth.
Yes.
Oh, where was it? I just saw it.
AJ
The
Bell,
AK Bell Library.
AK
I'm sure
Bell.
anyone
Yeah,
in Perth
that's the
knows which
one.
library
Yeah.
it is anyway.
Yeah.
But there we are.
Yeah. I mean it's very nice now when I'm searching for things to include in this slot in the program. On Eventbrite, libraries are still running loads of digital inclusion courses as they always
Yes,
did. So it's
yes.
great to see. So anybody can dip into Eventbrite themselves and find out what courses are going on. Hopefully in an area local to them if they need them. So yeah, well done.
Hmm.
And the next, this is third of four events that we're announcing, um, kind of mentioning today. Is this one's on next week, 27th of May, and the title is The Essential Skills of a Digital Mindset. And we often talk about in the program about having a mindset, having the confidence to kind of use digital technology. So I think this might contribute to that. This is a fireside style panel event exploring the real world competencies needed to navigate and thrive in today's digital world. And it's based on Technology Coaching's 6-part digital mindset framework. And the session brings together founders, creatives, marketers, and digital leaders who live and breathe these skills in their own businesses. From cybersecurity to content strategy, automation to regenerative marketing, the promises will explore how they apply all 6 competencies in connected, practical ways. But they do say it's not about becoming an expert in everything. It's about building the confidence, clarity, and capability to move forward in a digital first world. So I think that I picked out 3 useful things there. And I know, but it is all about confidence, having confidence to learn something that'll make a difference in today's digital world. So hopefully, some of our listeners will find that useful.
And that last one is in Glasgow, so to
Ah,
Scotland. Yes.
great. Yeah. Scotland
Awesome.
does do very well on digital, I must say. It's not hard to find good digital things going on in Scotland. So well done for the Scots. Okay, and finally, this is a bit in advance. But as both Swain and I are involved in Open Data Camp, we're delighted to bring to our listeners and readers and others the announcement that Open Data Camp 10, the 10th Open Data Camp, will be held on the 27th and 28th of September at the University of Edinburgh Business School. And this is the link in the show notes will be to a LinkedIn post from our Open Data Camp page on LinkedIn with more details to follow in due course. But there's a call to action here for this. If you want to help make this event happen, we at Open Data Camp are looking for volunteers, sponsors, and community supporters. And if that's you, please email odcampuk, that's odcamp, odcamp, at gmail.com if you want to get involved in that. And we've got a meeting this evening to talk about all of that. So if you're interested, as Swain has on the screen now, the LinkedIn page for Open Data Camp. There's also a website, so it's not hard to keep up what's going on. And we also are on Blue Sky and Mastodon now as well.
Mastodon, that's
So
right.
yeah,
Yes.
So
There's the nice first image for OD Camp 10.
that's our standard.
Is it?
Yeah, the kind of
Ah,
the
oh,
kind of when we have no
ah,
logo.
I
Yes.
guessed what I looked at that and saw. I looked
Yeah.
at that and saw lots of tens, but actually it's zeros and
Ah,
ones.
yes. Yeah.
Oh
So
dear.
there you
That's,
go. Yeah, a logo will be produced in due course.
I thought we
All
were well ahead.
suggestions, yeah, all suggestions, gratefully received.
That's so
But
funny.
yeah, please do get involved if you're in the area or even not and want to
Mm.
help us make this one even better than all the previous ones have been.
And Edinburgh in September should be a place where accommodation is quite easy for those traveling further ahead because it's not basically because it's not August
Aha,
when the
okay,
festivals
good
are
to
on.
know.
So
Yeah,
yeah, and
very good
September tends
point.
to be a quieter month in Edinburgh than almost any other.
Okay,
So
good to know. Okie dokie. And so we don't have a special guest today. We have other guests lined up for later in June. So we look forward to having them, and hopefully we'll have a few more before we finish season 5 at the end of July. But in the meantime, we will press on with some stories that we have had been accumulating. Some of them are a bit elderly now, but maybe a couple of weeks old, but still valid. And
you always do a good job, Pauline, of picking a few stories every week.
yeah,
And then we imagine that we'll have like 15 minutes left over when we have a guest, but normally we talk and chat and interview each other so for so long that we run out of time for any stories at all.
we
So
can't
some of
help
them
ourselves.
go back
Yeah,
weeks. Yes,
yeah.
but who cares?
But we'll catch up today, hopefully, on most of them. So here we go. So you were mentioning appropriate days for the
Hmm.
program to have, and actually, this is another one, Global Accessibility Awareness Day, where I think we've mentioned this before on previous seasons. This is an article by Megan Crossley on LinkedIn, saying about this Global Accessibility Awareness Day, which was on the 15th of May, which was last Friday. Was it Friday, Thursday or Friday? Digital inclusion and innovation can go hand in hand. And Megan says that accessibility should be embedded into our digital ways of working, and it helps to ensure opportunities for everyone. We're witnessing an era where innovation in the technology space is helping to break down barriers and empower those with disabilities like never before. Things which start out as embracing the user experience ultimately lay the foundations for accessible space online. And she gives a few examples such as real-time transcription services, mentioning platforms such as Microsoft Teams and Zoom, which now offer automatic captioning, enhancing inclusivity in the workplace for deaf or hard of hearing professionals. She says she uses these all the time and have introduced other colleagues to them. She says it can be brilliant for all sorts of disabilities and is fairly accurate most of the time. And I must say, I use that myself sometimes. If you've joined an event late, or you just can't always understand the accent maybe of somebody that's talking, like myself. People sometimes
Or
have
me
difficulty understanding my accent or yours,
and
yeah.
me
So
and
that can
everybody when it
that
comes
can
down
be
to it.
helpful
Somebody
for
finds
people.
all accents difficult. No,
Yeah, so
that looks
so
really
that
good.
looks really handy.
And then we've
The
got other things.
couple of other things she mentions, yeah, assistive and hands-free technology. Voice assistants and hands-free technology has been one of the revolutionary propellers of accessibility. She mentions Alexa or Siri. This kind of technology allows those with motor impairments to control devices, schedule meetings, and draft emails without need for physical input. She also finds them useful for transcription services, as you can stipulate to take actions or create outputs verbally. And again, I use Alexa every day. As you know, I've got a Alexa above my desk here that I play the radio on, get time checks, weather checks, etc. I'm not sure how basic people thought we were going to use these for, but I do ask Alexa more sophisticated questions from time to time, but I don't always get the answer I
Is she going
expect.
crazy because you keep mentioning her?
No, so far she hasn't woken up at all, so that's good. Maybe. Megan goes on to mention flexible communication tools. A major breakthrough during COVID-19 for accessible technology is, of course, the introduction of apps like Teams and Zooms. You can customize communication preferences, whether it's calls, messaging, or using assistive tech integration. Working digitally and remotely has played a vital role in supporting disabled professionals across the UK workforce. And finally, she mentions adaptable UK design, UX
You
design, sorry. Back to the basics, as what once started as user preferences has evolved into essential accessibility features such as captions, alternative audio options, and adaptable text displays, benefiting colleagues with visual and neurological conditions. And again, these kind of inventions for one group often benefit another, such as when I always like to refer is aluminium, because the development of aluminium or aluminum, as our American friends call it, um, uh, for people going to space, exploring outer space, led to more lightweight wheelchairs. So, which makes easier for disabled
Oh, I
people who
didn't know that
use
one. I'm
wheelchairs
going to
to,
remember that one.
yeah.
Hmm.
So,
Interesting.
always great to see
No, and
see
it's
multiple benefits of things.
great to see her include on behalf of, people on the fringes of the civilized world, as people tend to think that people like I am. Good to see her mention Teams and Zoom,
Mm,
and use that example of how it allowed people during the pandemic to recognize that they were really useful for
mm.
people with various challenges, not, as I keep saying, not just whinging Scottish Islanders, but also people with mobility or issues or caring responsibilities or all
Mm,
sorts of disabilities,
yeah.
whether physical, mental, or societal.
Mm,
If there's such a thing as a societal disability, I'm not sure about that.
hmm
Uh, but yeah, I mean, and yeah, I like that article very much indeed.
mm,
And the other example I sometimes use about accessibility being useful for everyone is dropped curbs are
hmm
useful for all sorts of people, not just people wheeling wheeling a wheelchair or whatever, but people with luggage and all sorts of people.
Yeah,
Uh,
absolutely.
so there we are.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
as she
very
says, some
good.
of these things have just kind of become embedded in the way
Mm,
we live now, and that's great. But we need to keep pushing for some of the ones that we could do further work with. We
mm,
need to keep pushing for the newer things that come along to be embedded into everyone's life as well.
yeah. And the thing to remember about it's funny, I was reading something else on LinkedIn this morning about Teams. I think somebody was having a
Mm.
pop at it, basically saying it looked like something that was kind of invented for an internal use and then kind of was quickly shared online because um other companies were, you know, gaining what's it called market share,
I
such
don't
as
know if that's
Zoom's.
I don't know if that's right because it was being marketed. Teams was being marketed quite aggressively even before the pandemic,
Okay.
and but I do think the first part of what you said there is absolutely right. Its user interface could not be more complicated or unpredictable,
Yeah.
partly because it's so customizable. And
Mm,
that in itself is a feature aimed at internal organizations who want to
mm,
control how their IT setup is concerned. And if you've got a well set up instance of Teams, it's an absolute joy to use.
mm,
But unfortunately, it's so complicated, and or the settings that make it good for use internally make it more difficult for use by people outside
mm,
it makes it more difficult to include people from the outside of an organization, and you just end up in these terrible Teams morasses of stuff.
uh-huh,
And compared to the likes of Zoom or even Google Meet, which are much more intuitive, much easier for the general user to use. No,
mm,
I think Teams was simply, uh, I think the design of Teams is is more uh, the result of it being a monopoly to start with
mm, mm,
than, and I think some of the improvements to Teams over the last year or two, and there have been improvements, have come through the rise of Zoom.
mm,
But I think initially when it was released, it was just what Microsoft decided was best for everyone as usual.
mhm,
That's how Microsoft works. They
yeah.
create this enormous, great, there's an enormous amount of work for 2 years, and then they issue something, then they work out what it's for, then they write lots of advertising, and then you're more or less forced to use it because most other people use it.
It sounds like the opposite of agile.
It absolutely is. It
Mm,
absolutely is.
yeah, yeah.
Absolutely, the opposite of service design or any of that stuff. It's
Mm,
just, but then again, the model started in what, 1986 or something, when Microsoft became dominant,
okay.
I suppose.
I didn't know the history. I didn't know. I didn't
Yeah,
know.
yeah,
I wouldn't
yeah.
be able to date it.
It
But
was
yeah,
formed
yeah,
in the
not
late 70s,
surprised.
but their big
Okay.
success was to persuade IBM to allow them to provide the operating system for the very first IBM PC.
Okay.
I'm going to guess the date was about 1985 or six, something
Mm-hmm.
like that.
Okay.
So
Wow.
they've been utterly dominant ever since.
Absolutely. I
And you
know.
can
I
tell
know.
by their attitude and their
Oh
approach
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
to stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, and Zoom is also, what was developed for enterprise, not for community. So but it has definitely adapted very well to community use and kind of just the ordinary basic user,
Yeah.
much more, I think.
Yeah.
And then of course the others, as you mentioned, Google Meet. What's the other one people are using now? Whereby I think people are talking about
Oh,
as a
yes.
as a as another alternative that people are looking into. So um um
I
yeah,
think the other thing
it's
about
good
Teams is,
to.
of course, that Microsoft for a long time supported both Teams and Skype. So which were different things, although they look very
Yes, they
similar.
did, and now
So,
they've
so
just
if you're,
retired Skype.
yeah,
Yeah.
if you were previously, if you were an individual user of Microsoft, they would just say, "Oh, just use Skype."
Mm,
But that didn't make it easy to integrate individuals and organizations together,
mm,
as it is much easier to do with Zoom.
yeah. Actually, I'm glad you mentioned Skype, because yeah, I'm very sad that it's gone because I promoted it strongly to community organizations because it uses it did used to use less data than other video communications tools, and so they were able to make their data go further.
Yeah,
So yeah, I'm
of
really
course,
sorry
yes,
that it's gone.
yes.
I found it very useful. I still use it up
Hmm.
to like last month.
May the
So yeah,
25th or whatever the
yeah,
last day was.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
No, hang
Mm.
on, we're not there yet, are we? Mm. Yeah,
So yeah, RIP to Skype, and
absolutely. After
yeah,
20 years.
I know, shocking, but there we go. Progress
Well,
of
shocking and
sorts.
yet not, because I mean, part of the whole digital thing is things come and go.
Yeah,
So
they do, they do.
uh, yeah.
So moving on, we have an item from Helen Beetham on Substack, titled AI Realism, and this is we're going to show, if we can just play a short excerpt from this, Swain, from the start to 2.5 minutes in,
Yes,
basically on what is AI realism and why is it easier to imagine the end of the world than the end of AI hype. And this is Audrey Waters and Helen Beetham getting together for a chat about the state of AI, why we're all trudging up the long slope of the AI adoption curve, whether we believe in the promises or not, and what we make of vibe coding. So let's try and play that from start to 2.5 minutes
I
in,
will, and
please.
I'll leave the graph on the screen in the hope that she talks about that.
Yeah.
Here we go.
There's a kind of acceptance everywhere that, the whole ecology of scholarly and non-scholarly content is completely occupied now. And I guess that's another meaning of AI realism for me, is ideology, not in the sense that we're all deluded, but in the sense that literally the water in which we are swimming, the lens through which we can view the world, has been changed profoundly just in the space of 2.5 years. And to talk about could ever be put back somehow just leads us into kind of vacuous moralising of the kind we've been saying is not helpful. Hello again, and welcome to Imperfect Offerings. I'm Helen. This week, Audrey Waters and I met up to talk about AI realism. What is AI realism? Well, you'll hear that we have some different ideas about that. What we see among our colleagues, and what I know I experienced myself, is realism as a kind of coping response. It's not that all of us are delighted by generative AI. It's not that we're all deeply invested in the AI future, or even that very many of us are deluded about the coming of superhuman minds. In fact, so-called AI has very quickly become very mundane. It's just that the mundane can be in some ways harder to resist than the hype and the hyperbole. AI seems to be everywhere. It's in all our platforms, it's in search, it's in our writing tools, it's in data analysis, it's in the chatbots that front all our online services. It's there anytime you want to create or communicate. If you're a teacher, your students are definitely using it, and that's changing their work. which in today's schools and universities is a really important channel for how we work with students. So our work has got to change too. And if you're in work of any kind, your colleagues are probably using it, and you may suspect they're using it better than you are or faster than you are. So we're all, in a very practical way, adapting, adopting, accentuating the positive, coping with the negative, and trying not to think too hard about the wider risks and implications beyond our own immediate or now AI-mediated realities. Now, I'm going to come back at the end to a more coercive meaning of AI realism. But for now, here's me and Audrey talking about what we think AI realism means in the everyday life of education. I really hope you enjoy it.
So I think that's just a lead in to a possibly very interesting presentation. But I just thought, especially with the diagram, as you pointed out, Sweyn, seeing where the curve is on AI, and it just I thought might be interesting to our followers.
Yes, it's fascinating. I want to hear more of that. Yeah, I am way down at the bottom of that graph personally,
Yeah.
about a third of the way in, and where it's really low.
Uh-huh. We didn't get on to it. It mentioned vibe coding. We didn't get on to what it said about that. But actually, the next item from Doug
Okay,
Belshaw is about also mentions that. So he says it's a discovery tool which asks you some questions, suggests some jobs, and tags them based on how likely. Sorry, I was just reading that out on the screen.
sorry, I do apologize. I'm getting in a terrible
Um,
mess today. Oh, here we go again.
oh yeah, how
There we go.
likely to be automated in the future? Yeah, it uses the Perplexity and Lightcast APIs. So I just again thought that might be interesting for people to um try out the tool. Is it something that's new to you, vibe coding?
I've never heard of it.
It's career discovery tool. Yeah.
I'll just have a
So
look at that. Yes.
mm,
But going back to the last story, I love the tagline of the Imperfect Offerings podcast, which was what we were playing the excerpt from. Raging against the machine since before ChatGPT. Very good. Sorry,
yes, absolutely.
returning to the career discovery tool,
Yeah.
vibe
Um, I'm not sure
vibe coding, a career
yeah.
discovery tool. There's a video.
If you go on, scroll down the item a bit. This isn't a production ready. No, scroll up again. This bit here, this bit of text under the YouTube link. Yeah, this
Okay,
isn't a
sorry.
production ready app, but it's a good example of what's possible when you've got an idea you want to show someone. For context, it took me less than half an hour to create the above. I think it helps to have been a product manager and worked with developers before, but I wouldn't say it's mandatory to successfully use this kind of thing successfully. So he's talking about vibe coding, a discovery tool.
Mm.
Yeah, but the implication to me is that vibe coding is a very easy thing to do, unlike other kind of coding. That's my take on it anyway.
Purely from my first impression, and based on this one article, it sounds a bit like the concept of prototyping
Yeah.
with AI added to make it quicker and arguably deeper or more functional more quickly.
Mm,
I would just really caution, being an old IT bore, that there's one thing putting together a quick look at what something might be like. The real skill for a product manager then is to restrain the marketing people and the senior management from saying, right, give that to everyone now, we're going
yeah.
to use it.
Yes.
The
Yeah,
real skill
absolutely.
is in taking the bits that are doable within an acceptable cost and implementing them properly so that
Mm,
you've got data security, you've got, a good user experience and whatever. It's always been easy to put together a demonstrator
mm,
that gives the impression. It's just that um, that possibility with AI is probably opened up to a lot more people, which
mm.
may or may not be a good thing depending on how they react at the end
Yeah,
of that process.
yeah, absolutely. Okie dokie. And then the next item is
Mm.
titled VCSE AI peer network. It's a new chapter in responsible AI for social impact, and this is to do with the voluntary community sector more than and social enterprise sector rather than the um, for profit and public sector. And this was hark back to an item I picked up in March. Yeah, March. And so on the 26th of February 2025, the VCSE AI Peer Network was launched by Tech for Good Southwest, our colleagues there, including Annie Legg and other great people like that, designed to help charities, community groups, and social enterprises navigate AI's potential ethically. Sorry, let me phrase that better or make it sound better. Navigate AI's potential ethically and practically. I missed a beat there. With 35 attendees, including existing members of Tech for Good Southwest, this first session laid the foundation for a collaborative, peer-led approach supported by our AI skills, facilitation expertise, and visiting experts from the community. The network aligns closely with national efforts such as the Charity AI Task Force, which is exploring how charities can leverage AI to better serve their missions while addressing risks around ethics, bias, and accessibility. And if you're asking the question, why an AI peer network? The answer is VCSE organizations face increasing pressure, rising costs, growing demand, and stretched resources. And it is commonly shared a belief that AI has the potential to ease some of these challenges, but many organizations feel overwhelmed or unsure where to start. So the peer network exists to demystify AI, making it accessible, practical, and ethical, bridge the gap between social impact and AI innovation, bringing charities and technologies together, and foster a shared learning space from curious beginners to experienced users. So that might be something, Sweyn, that we get Annie or one of our colleagues in to talk about.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah.
Sounds like a very sensible approach. One thing I'm curious about, you might know the answer to, it's not quite related, but who decides what patch these VCSE organizations cover? Do they just kind of organically
Organically, yeah.
form themselves,
Yeah.
or is there any
Yeah.
kind of, yeah, okay, interesting.
Annie and colleagues, Kat, I can't remember the surname of the other woman who was involved. Just kind of were based in Bristol and Bath, and they, I think, just grew the network around
Excellent. No, that's
themselves.
great.
Yeah, they were involved with Bath Digital Festival, and I think they still are. I've spoken at that previously. And yeah, I think just kind of it just grew over time that that's what they wanted to be involved in. Annie's
Yeah.
also one of the founder members of the UK and Ireland Tech for Good Organisers Network, which I'm a part of as well.
Right.
So
Yes,
yeah,
yes, yes,
yeah,
yes.
she's a great person to know.
Because increasingly those, I mean, those organizations, I mean, we have one in Orkney called oh, I can't remember what it's called, something Orkney,
Mm-hmm.
Voluntary Action Orkney, it's called,
Mm,
and any of those voluntary community and social enterprise organizations can join it
mm,
and get access to their premises and their training and all of that sort of thing. And it seems, I mean, it seems more and more that what those organizations are focusing on more and more, a bigger proportion of what they're doing seems to be digital
mm.
over the last 10 years.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know why I'm telling you this because you know, but there we are.
No, it's good to have it put out there.
Uh,
Okay, and so we go on to the next item, which is again from LinkedIn. And the heading is Digital Inclusion isn't just a tech problem, it's a societal one. And this was from the an Impact Experts Masterclass, chaired by Gemma Waters from Lloyd's Banking Group, with colleagues from Upskill Universe, Gori Yahaya, Freddie Quek, who we've had on the
Oops.
program before, Emmy Caden from the BT Group, and Bina Puri from Greater Manchester Combined Authority, who unpacked 2 decades of effort uncovering what's worked, what hasn't, and where we go from here. So that sounds like something that we would want to share with our people who listen to this program. From the masterclass, Gemma's key takeaways were that sustainability is key, digital support surged during the pandemic, but hasn't lasted, as we've
Yep.
talked about before on this program. With rapid tech changes, skills need updating every 7 years. I would say
Yep.
probably nearer than 7 years, but anyway, digital inclusion requires ongoing skill refreshment. That's one thing. Then connectivity is essential. It must be reliable and high quality for access to services. And again, I'm finding this, Swain, in my own work, that it's fine to get people connected at a basic level, but it's not, once people get one kind of foot on the ladder, they inevitably discover this could be better.
Yes.
And they want a better
Yes.
system. And that's what I'm working on in one of the projects, one of the areas I'm helping in Birmingham to try and get them from a basic connection up to kind of a more reliable and faster broadband, because
Hmm.
that's what people come to expect. On this, back to this article, design must be inclusive, engaging diverse communities lead to better outcomes. Goes without saying, one we've always talked about. So yeah, I totally agree with that. From collaboration to co-delivery, impactful partnerships are needed, not just good intentions, definitely.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's all very well to have wanting to do good, it's just not enough. You need to be able to make it happen. Proactive approach is vital. Instead of waiting for crises, focus on timely, meaningful interventions. And this again goes back to COVID and lockdowns. That was a crisis. People built digital things on top of feeling scared and hurt and afraid. And now when they have a bit more breathing space, I think they need to go back and focus on making the interventions more of a foundation and make them meaningful. Balancing tech and human support. Some need in-person help while others prefer digital tools. We must cater to both. I definitely agree with that. And finally, on digital inclusion, it must prepare on preparing people for future jobs, including AI, data literacy, and cybersecurity training now. Okay, well, maybe that article was based on um, a work thinking about workplaces. I don't think digital inclusion has to focus on preparing people for jobs, but I mean, when you are preparing for future jobs, digital inclusion has to be included. You know what I mean? So it's not the be all and end all for digital inclusion, but digital inclusion for jobs must include these things. So I hope that's
Yep.
I've been clear on that.
Yep.
So yeah, yeah, good. Okie dokie. And the next item links almost seamlessly to the previous one. Who should fund digital inclusion? And this is
Aha.
from
That was one of those things on the list, wasn't it?
yes,
Yes.
it was. So this is from Lee Smith, who I've talked to online for a little while again, somebody who might like to join us on the program at some stage. And they go on to say the cost of solving digital exclusion runs into billions. Funding such a monumental initiative cannot fall solely on taxpayers via government, nor should it. The organizations that have reaped billions from digital transformation, banks, utility providers, content platforms like Netflix, ISPs, and broadcasters have a responsibility to help foot this bill. Now, there's a challenge. I don't think that's uh, um, an overnight success going to be, but it's
No.
a definitely thing that taps into some things I would definitely agree on, that corporates have made fortunes
Mm.
from digital, and yeah, it's time to kind of tap them up for put some of the money back into the
Mm.
people who might benefit the most. And what they give reasons for kind of saying why they're responsible. Firstly, because they benefit the most, their services improve, and they continue to profit or save more as more people gain access to digital tools. Yeah, that's a very very easy thing to state and to agree with. Motivation aligns with outcomes. Co-funding obligates these organizations to ensure efficient, high-quality support at the point of need. Great, a bit of strong arming or encouragement would yeah, make these organizations see that their co-funding would be a benefit to them, and they it's something they should do. Bit of ethics and kind of positive reinforcement there. They're saying confusion will follow. With more organizations getting involved in an uncoordinated way, the end user will undoubtedly get more and more confused. So um, they're proposing some coordination so it's not confusing. And then finally, and we've just mentioned it already, ethical responsibility. Most of these businesses have saved billions while driving the digital revolution. Surely ensuring universal access to these advancements is not just ethical, it's good business. The article finishes by saying examples of brilliance do exist, but they are patchy at best and often constrained by postcode lottery. We need a collective effort supported by cross-sector collaboration and government coordination. So I think again, as I said, we'd like to get Lee on the program to talk about more about these things. And I think I have talked to them on LinkedIn, so I will follow that up and get them to join us. Anything else you want to say on that, Swain?
It's a great topic. It's an interesting topic. And my it would be a mistake to leave all these big companies in control of what goes on the one
Mm,
hand, but we do need somehow to fund stuff on the other hand. So, and the same applies to government. We don't want
mm,
government to be necessarily in control of what happens in the digital space. So I don't know. There's a lot of issues there to tease out and to get right. Um, Possibly one way of doing it would be to, you know, tax these companies more and use the money for things like this, including possibly funding libraries to deliver things because they seem to know what they're doing and be plugged into their local communities. Don't know. Never. It'll never catch on.
can't disagree. We can live in hope, and
But
we can invite Lee on the program to talk about it.
I suppose what I'm saying is there's a whole range of ways of going about this, and I can't see automatically where the balance might fall. I mean, I've just
Mm,
suggested something that's way off one end of the discussion. There'll be other um, suggested approaches because we're not talking about building actual solutions here. We're talking about building the financial viability
mm,
of
mm.
digital stuff for everyone.
Yeah.
Um, I'm not sure that a situation where the big companies have even more influence and control over what goes on than they already do is necessarily the right one. But if we can get money out of them, maybe that's worth the risk,
Mm.
since we seem incapable of taxing them.
We will monitor the situation as we were monitoring so much else from this
Indeed.
program, obviously. Um, yeah, so I mentioned Lee Smith there.
Yeah, needs to get
If
Lee on.
Lee would like to join us on the program, we'd love to confirm that. I'll be in touch on LinkedIn with them. And yeah, and any other guests who would like to join us on the show, this is a time for a good time for a what you call an advert. Please do contact one of us to join us on the show. We'd love to have you,
Absolutely.
especially as we're coming to the end of we can fit more guests in before the end of season 5, and we'd love to have more guests lined up for season 6.
More voices,
So
the better.
absolutely. Which brings us neatly actually to ScreenShare, and we are going to
Oh, yes.
have somebody from ScreenShare joining us on the program in a couple of weeks' time. But in the meantime, this is they're calling themselves the leading digital inclusion charity for refugees in the UK, established in 2023. ScreenShare it's called, and it collects and sanitizes IT assets free of charge, redistributing them to people in need. In addition, they provide digital skills training and internet connectivity, helping to bridge the digital divide. And according to their charity commission account, the organization aims to advance digital inclusion for refugees and people seeking sanctuary by refurbishing, repairing, and redistributing digital devices, distributing data packs, enacting advocacy and lobbying in the area of digital inclusion, providing technical digital training to refugees and asylum seekers, and developing technology which facilitates digital inclusion for refugees. So we can tell from that's all about the refugees and Moses Seitel, Moses something. Let me just look at my diary. Um, Moses Seitler, sorry, from ScreenShare is going to be joining us hopefully in the middle of June to talk about that great organization.
That looks great.
Mm,
The website looks really interesting.
mm.
Mm.
Only founded 2 years ago, so and I
There
can
you
think
go.
of organizations I can
Mm,
tell about this actually, so
mm,
it'd be
mm.
good to share that with them.
It's a good example of a well, it's not a new idea, is it? It's collecting and sanitizing devices, but
No, it's
it's a good
just for a
idea of
particular
focusing on a particular niche
yeah, community.
of the requirements that there are. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, and one of the things I do know about refugees and asylum seekers is when they are waiting for their asylum status to be confirmed for refugees, they're when they arrive, the Home Office takes their device off them so they
Oh, I
can
didn't know that.
check it for whatever they want to check it for. I can't really say what they're checking it for, but they get their
For
devices
security
removed from
reasons.
them. Yeah. That's a good way of putting it.
Yeah.
And probably there isn't they don't feel there's a rush to get the devices back to them. So in
Oh,
the meantime, the people are
interesting.
excluded, and so yeah, my project and others, my work project and others, try and help them to have devices in the
Mm,
meantime so they can
that's really interesting.
stay in
Yeah.
touch with their families and friends. Yeah. So yeah, there is definitely a need there. Okay, so this next item is from The New Scientist by Chris Stokell Walker, and this was, I mean, it is a couple of weeks old, probably a few months old now, but um, this is a post entitled "Revealed How the UK Tech Secretary Uses ChatGPT for Policy Advice," which is a headline that should strike fear or at least trepidate, at least um, a bit of what's the word, Swain? Bit of concern, worry, maybe
I can't think of a better word than concern or worry.
into the hearts of policymakers and other politicians, maybe. But anyway, things may have changed since then. You know how things change so quickly. But anyway, in this article, at the time, the UK's Technology Secretary, Peter Kyle, apparently has asked ChatGPT for advice on why the adoption of artificial intelligence is so slow in the UK business community and which podcasts he should appear on. So again, maybe he's a potential guest for us, Swain.
Absolutely. I'm
Peter
sure we
Kyle
came up in
wouldn't
his
wouldn't
list.
say no.
I'm
Yeah.
sure ChatGPT would mention us along with the rest of his politics and all those other, little tiny podcasts around the world.
Yeah, probably. So, at the time this item, I picked it up. The Prime Minister Keir Starmer had been saying that the UK government should be making far more use of AI in an effort to increase efficiency. He was saying no person's substantive time should be spent on a task where digital or AI could do it better, quicker, and to the same high quality and standard. And of course, that's the rub. You know, it's the standard whether AI is doing it to the same standard is the question. So, New Scientist apparently on foot of that statement, or at the same time, had obtained records of Kyle's ChatGPT use under the Freedom of Information Act, always very handy for journalists, in what is believed to be a world first test of whether chatbot interactions are subject to such laws. So, two for the price of one there. Um, Kyle apparently also used the chatbot to canvass ideas for media appearances, asking, and this is taken from the FOI request information. I'm Secretary of State for Science, Innovation and Technology in the United Kingdom. What would be the best podcast for me to appear on to reach a wide audience that's appropriate for my ministerial responsibilities? ChatGPT suggested The Infinite Monkey Cage and The Naked Scientists, based on their number of listeners. Don't know much about those. Don't know anything really about those podcasts, so can't comment on them. But
Well, the
interesting.
Infinite Monkey Cage is Robert Ince and Professor Brian Cox, not the actor,
Ah, okay.
Professor,
Yeah.
discussing various aspects of science. So I
Okay.
guess they've seen science and innovation in his title, and that might well be a reasonable
Yeah.
one. I've never heard of the Naked Scientists,
hmm
but yeah,
Interesting. We
don't know
must
about this.
make sure we get more mentions so we can be featured in such searches as well in the future. Anyway, as well as seeking this advice, Kyle asked ChatGPT to
Oh,
define various terms relevant to his department, such as antimatter, quantum, and digital inclusion. So it'll be interesting to see what, if any, definitions they came up with. I didn't get any more from the article on that, so yeah. If anything more comes up on that, if anybody knows any more about that, please do contact us and come on the program and talk about it.
I
So
might have a search around and see if we can find the actual information because information FOI requests are published. So I might try and
yes, they are. Yes, they are.
see what they said about see what ChatGPT said about digital inclusion, which obviously we are looking at this through a very particular, fairly narrow lens of digital inclusion
hmm
compared to all the other things. Digital fusion isn't really one of my top concerns in life. But
hmm
be interesting to see if anything more specific came up that New Scientist hasn't highlighted about digital inclusion.
Yeah.
On the
Yeah.
principle of this, I'm in two minds, I must admit. I mean, do we ask for people's search histories as FOIs? Maybe we can, maybe we should.
Looks like you can now. So
Well,
people
I
are
mean,
gonna.
I'm not sure about this. I mean, I rather than it being an FOI, it would have been great if he'd come out and said, "This is what I've been doing, and here's
Yeah.
how it worked." And
Yeah.
what I was expect, what Chat GPT gave me was this. I asked my policy experts to come up with something, and they come up with this. Now let's compare them.
Yeah,
Something
that would be really
there's
good.
something good and significant to
Mm,
happen here. But as soon as you
mm,
turn something into an FOI, I mean,
yeah.
I see this from both sides because I used to
Yeah.
spend about 20% of my time finding pointless statistics for random FOIs sent to all councils about suppliers of this or suppliers of that,
Uh-huh.
contracts for this, contracts for that. I mean, it's just basically people doing lazy market research like, a lot of the time.
Mm,
Um, but on the other hand, stories like this come out of FOI requests, and lots of other really interesting things have come out too. So, yeah.
mm. Yeah, we will watch
I think
as
if
with
FOI had
interest
been
as
here,
usual.
if FOI had been at the point it is now, when search engines came in first, the search histories would have been FOI'd by now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And do we really want that? Is that actually telling us anything useful? I mean, maybe we want it. Is that really fair on people trying to do their job?
Yeah, and as librarian, yeah, you're asking very very pertinent question there because I don't want people come into libraries and
Yeah,
knowing what books I'm looking at or
yeah.
what materials I'm
Well,
searching. So
there's
yeah,
always the
yeah,
tension of FOI and data protection. That's always in tension. So there would have
yeah,
to be some unpacking of that. But
yeah,
as a public servant, you might well feel the professional need
mm,
to consider things which you don't necessarily want made public
mm-hmm,
for a variety of perfectly good reasons.
yeah.
Um, I don't know. Maybe it's just my inner bureaucrat coming out. I don't know.
We all have a bit of that. Okay, we'll move on to the next story. We've got a few more to hopefully cover before we finish today. This is one entitled Young People from Two Different Communities in Scotland Develop Their Own Digital Games. And again, this is something I picked up from LinkedIn,
Oh yes.
celebrating the success of two groups of young people. The article kind of went on, talked about they discovered the oh so close relationship between pizzas and games, jams, and the joy of hot chocolate on tap. This was something they, discovered that they liked about doing these hackathons or whatever together. They liked visiting different cities and meeting new people, opening up new horizons. They liked getting inside a university and spending real time on an exciting game development project, an opportunity grasped with both hands. And the games that the young people created are truly inspiring, an amazing achievement, and one to be proud of, and they include plus principles provided a focus for exploring digital inclusion. They align so closely with the values and principles of youth work that the project was a joy, so it's a natural fit for us in this work. So I think mostly I just wanted to flag up that these young people had created their own digital games by being given the opportunity to do it in an environment that we're familiar with, hacks and so on like that. So yeah, good to see young people learning together in a way that's familiar to us. So yeah,
Yes.
mm, well done,
Yes.
well done. Third last item because the last one's about a friend of ours who died unfortunately. This was from Kirsty Morans from Charity Digital, an article entitled "How to Get Buy-in for Digital Inclusion." This is from charities, and I'll just flick through the headlines for this. Build a compelling case for digital inclusion. Using things like the research and evidence available, such as the Lloyds Bank 2023 Consumer Digital Index and the Charity Digital Skills Report 24. Align digital inclusion with strategic goals. Build a business case for digital inclusion. Start small and scale. That's always a good one to kind of
Mm.
focus on. Don't try and do a big complicated problem. Just do something that works and show that because management always likes that, and it's good for everybody. Involve everyone in the process, not just senior management. Even people who are kind of considered low down on the pecking order can come up with great ideas about how to improve things. Communicate process, progress, and challenges. Always important. Don't make people wonder about what you're doing. Do tell people what you're up to. Notice boards are a great thing in charity still for people to find out what's going on. Remind everyone of the importance of digital inclusion. As part of that, you build in processes to capture case studies or testimonials to say how great things are. And that's from our friend Kirsty Marins, again, a possible guest on the show.
Mm.
Always writes well about social media and etc. So good to see that. Second last article, mobile phone subscriptions per 100 people. And this was something I just picked up. Again on LinkedIn from Max Jones, who's the managing partner with Agilicis. Looking at the our World in Data report, if you can bring up the graph on the screen, Sweyn, um, it shows that most countries have more phone subscriptions than they have citizens, in some cases over twice as many. In the UK, there's 120 subscriptions per 100 citizens. Max was initially surprised by the data, but most of us have more than one phone. I certainly have for work and for home.
Yes.
So on the surface, you could conclude everyone has a mobile phone, and therefore digital exclusion is a historical concept in the UK, but not quite. So people do have some sort of mobile access. Many people, most people, but that's not to say they're digitally included. Physical kit is not the same as making good use of it. Are you sharing the map on the screen, Swain? I can't see it.
No, I'm not. I'm half
Okay,
shared. I've half shared it.
okay.
There we are. Sorry about that.
Just interesting to see. And what I particularly point out was that really dark country shaded at the top of the Africa, and that's Libya, where is it 200, 400? I couldn't remember.
204.6
Yeah, per 100. So, yeah, quite
compared to
a,
the UK's 120.8.
yes, exactly. So,
And it's all happened much more recently as well.
yeah,
If you look at the graph in the pop-up window, it's happened since about the 90s.
yeah,
And
yeah.
in the UK, well, it's maybe even more recent than that. It's after the 2000s that the the graph has picked up appreciably above zero, and then but in the UK, it started in the 90s, the early 90s by the look of it.
Mm.
Yeah, I'm
But
interested to see what
Max is,
Finland has.
yeah, interesting to see all countries. That's one of those graphs you want to linger on, isn't it?
Yeah,
Sort of have a
I
look through
like
the
this. I
graphs
like
and all
this
that.
graph as well. I
Yeah.
like the plotting a few. You can choose which countries you plot together.
Mm.
I remember meeting a whole bunch of Finns in 2001, and being astonished to be told that that was the year in which in Finland they had more phones than people. Although that's not showing up on this graph, interestingly. It's
Uh-huh.
only showing up a few years later. That would have been 2004 according to this graph. But you can see how different that was to the United Kingdom at the time. Well, not very. So
Mm.
I don't know. There's something about the data here that maybe it was 1999.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember being astonished. I remember it being a real news story that Finland had more phones than people, but now I think nearly every country in the world does.
Mm. So a good one to linger on, and Max's kind of learning or kind of from this
Mm,
is to he says our focus needs to switch to two things. Firstly, building digital literacy through education, training, tutorials, supported by the right kind of help for when folks get stuck. It's not the rocket science, it's what we've said all along, but it's good to hear other people saying it. In this area in particular, he says the voluntary sector is providing immense support, and we are, but we need to be funded for that as well. We're providing support because other people don't do what they should do
yeah.
often. But yeah, that's another a
You'll
debate
see
for
a
another
correlation
day.
as you'll see a correlation as well between poor broadband and high mobile phone use.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So
So some
it's
of the
a
countries that are maybe a bit surprising, the reason they are using mobile phones is because they do not have the wired or the wireless broadband infrastructure.
yeah, and the devices as well. So yeah,
Yeah.
that
Oh,
that gap still needs to be bridged. But secondly, he's
Colombia.
also
Colombia has a lot of mobile phones as well. Interesting.
mm. Secondly, he says we should be designing digital systems from the outset with digital inclusion in mind, and that would be great if that would happen. Does this say something about how our digital solution design processes are engaging our citizens with specific digital inclusion needs? And I think it does, and it needs to be addressed. So he's just saying, as we move more and more public services online, it will serve the nation well if we build digital inclusion aware design in at the heart of our service offerings. And here we agree with that.
Oh, in fact, just quickly to share a really interesting graph, which is directly related to what we just said. There is a plot. At the bottom there are landlines.
Uh-huh.
Uh, at the top, so since 2001, there have been more mobile phone subscriptions than landline internets by a long, long
Interesting.
way.
Yeah, yeah. But they're still used by what's the value of the figure on the left? Landline
For
phone
mo for
subscriptions.
mobiles?
Yeah, no, the landline phone subscriptions. Just wondering how many there still are. Is that in the
Landline
thousands? Oh, subscriptions per hundred.
10.7 per 100 people. Yes.
Okay.
And that's
Okay, a
worldwide. You can
tenth.
change the
Yeah, yeah,
settings on this.
yeah. Okay, yeah, cool.
That's interesting because
Yes,
look at
2001.
landline internet subscriptions, more or less zero
Mm,
until
mm,
2001.
yeah, and then
And then
zoomed.
in 2017, yeah, I mean, and yeah, there are a few landline internet subscriptions, but the number of mobile phones has increased exponentially, and the number of landlines has decreased, but the number of landline internet connections has just increased steadily.
Mm,
That's a really good graph.
mm.
Anyway, sorry, I'm
No, that's fine. We
getting
are a
obsessed
few
with that
minutes over,
one.
but I think worth spending the time on that. And yeah, we wanted to finish by saying, sending our sympathies to the family and friends of our dear friend Nick Booth, who sadly lost his life recently, very tragically and very unexpectedly, when he had still so much to give and was enjoying life so much as we understood. And his a memorial for Nick's life is being held on the 25th of May, this Sunday coming, at Castle Bromwich Historical Gardens in Birmingham at 4:30, at which we expect to see. I'll certainly be there, and I'm sure I'll see many people I
Mm,
know. And we're very sorry that we never got him on the show. He would have been a great guest.
yeah,
He would have been a good friend of John's, and
it
yeah,
was. Yes. Yeah.
we
Yeah. Yeah.
send the family our deepest sympathies.
Hmm.
So a somber note, but Nick would have loved that, and will and as I was saying to Sweyn before the program started, when we were talking about this item, I will be recruiting guests for the show, on at Nick's memorial. So I think he would have enjoyed that. Yeah. Okay. So thanks everybody
Absolutely.
for joining
Abs
us, and have a great week. Bye bye.
Indeed. Bye.